Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Evolution, the series where we look at the history of Call of Duty. And over the past couple of years, we've looked at many different things, including the history of weapons, game modes, and even other things like maps. But today is going to be a little bit different, because what we are going to be looking at is the evolution of customization through the history of Call of Duty. Now, this is going to entail a couple of different things, including 1, weapon customization, 2, character customization, and just anything else that you can customize in the multiplayer of Call of Duty games. And there is a drastic change throughout the history of Call of Duty, and we're going to begin where I started playing Call of Duty, back with Call of Duty 4. So, as far as Call of Duty 4 goes, there's not a lot of customization, but it's kind of where it all began. In Call of Duty 4, starting off with weapons, for each weapon you could only have one attachment on each, no matter what. And it is the first Call of Duty game to actually have weapon camos. Now, some of the camos were earned by simply getting kills, while others were earned by getting headshots. Eventually, upon getting all of the camos for a specific set of weapons, i.e. shotguns, assault rifles, you would unlock gold camo for that class. So then as far as character customization, there wasn't really any. The way that your character looked depended on 2 things: what faction you were, so whether you're the Rangers or the SAS, and then the type of weapon that you're using. For example, if you were an SAS soldier and you were using a sniper rifle, you'd use the famous ghillie suit. This is something that we're going to see moving forward through the various Call of Duty games. Moving on to the next Call of Duty game, we've got Call of Duty World at War. So the interesting thing about World at War is they actually took a step back as far as customization go. Looking at the weapons, once again, you could only have one attachment. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that there was originally supposed to be weapon camos in World at War, but I guess it wasn't working properly, and shortly before the launch of the game, it was removed completely. Once again, as far as character customization goes, there's no options there, but your character model does change depending on, number 1, what faction you are playing for, and number 2, what weapon you are using. Once again, while using a sniper, your character puts on some sort of ghillie suit. And switching over to the Imperial Army, you can see a clear difference between the 2 different armies' characters. And as far as World at War went, that was pretty much it, and that moves us to the next Infinity Ward game. So Modern Warfare 2 is actually a decent step forward as far as this goes. Once again, weapon camos return to all of the weapons, with the top camo being Fall for getting 250 headshots with that individual weapon. However, there was no mastery camos like Gold, Diamond, or anything along those lines. Another addition was the perk of Bling, which allowed you to use 2 attachments on your primary weapon, and with Bling Pro, 2 attachments with your secondary as well. On top of that, a new piece of customization was called emblems and calling cards. These would appear anytime you died to someone or killed someone as well. Then as far as your character model goes, it is completely dependent on which team you are playing for, and on top of that, what your primary weapon is. There is no sort of character customization that you can personally change whatsoever. And that all changed with a game that was really far ahead of its time. Of course, Black Ops 1. So as I mentioned before, Black Ops 1 was well ahead of its time. There's many innovations in this game that don't even return in Black Ops 2. If we start off with weapon customization, as we can see here, there are a ton of options as to how to customize your weapon. First of all, with attachments, you can choose 1 or 2 if you use the Warlord perk. On top of that, with camos, the way that you unlock camos is not with challenges in this game, but you buy them with Call of Duty points that you just earn by playing the game. You'll also notice that there is a classified camo, which is a gold camo, which you unlock at Prestige 14. After this, you can customize your reticle to look different for the first time ever, and on top of that, change the reticle color or even the lens color. I don't think that a lens color has ever come back in any other Call of Duty games. On top of that, you can put your clan tag or emblem on your weapon as well. Speaking of which, for the first time ever, you can create your own emblems, and don't judge me, I made that when I was 15. On top of that, once again, calling cards return as a player card. On top of that, your character model in this game was not designated based off of the weapon you're using, but rather off of your first perk. So here you can see I'm using lightweight, and you can scroll through and see what you'd look like for each individual team. But, for example, if I choose Ghost, it completely changes my character model, not my weapon. And this is the same for every single perk 1, which is new in this game, and I believe this is also the only time they've ever done it based off of your first perk. So Black Ops 1 was a big step forward, but up next we have Modern Warfare 3. Once again, Modern Warfare 3 kind of changes things on its head. For the first time ever, weapons actually had levels, and as it turns out, the way that you unlock camos in this game is by ranking up the actual weapon. There's no challenges in it of themselves to unlock the camos. You just gotta level up the weapons all the way, for example, for the M4 to level 31, where you'll unlock the gold camo. Also, for the first time ever, there is DLC camos. The Marine and Winter camos were unlocked through Call of Duty Elite, and that is the only way you could get them, not by playing the game. Also new to this game, there is weapon perks or weapon proficiencies, and on top of that, the different types of red dots once again return like we saw in Black Ops 1. Now also, emblems and calling cards return in this game, but with no custom emblems in Modern Warfare 3, and I'm not going to mention emblems and calling cards anymore unless there's some sort of new change to them in future games. And once again, in Modern Warfare 3, your character model is completely dependent on what your primary weapon is, similar to exactly what we saw before. And then the final old-gen Call of Duty game we have is, of course, Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 added a bunch of interesting things revolving around weapon customization. First of all, the claim to fame of Black Ops 2 is adding the Pick 10 system, which made it possible for you to use up to 3 attachments on your primary weapon. Now, on top of this, they also introduced a new thing with camos. Once again, camos returned with a lot that you could unlock via challenges, but once you unlocked gold for every single weapon in a set of weapons, for example, assault rifles, you would then unlock a diamond camo for that set of weapons, which was brand new to Black Ops 2. Now, on top of this, added into this game were a lot, and I mean a lot, of DLC camos. This is something we're going to see amplified throughout the rest of the Call of Duty games. On top of that, custom emblems once again return in Black Ops 2, but as far as character customization, we don't see much in this game whatsoever, aside from what we've already seen previously. And now we are done with the old generation Call of Duty games. Moving on to the next gen games is where things get really squirrely when it comes to customization. And this begins with Call of Duty Ghost. So the next generation is where things really started to change as far as customization goes. First of all, the big thing that you're going to see right here is create a soldier. And essentially every single time you prestiged within game, you were given another soldier that you could actually take and customize the exact way you wanted to. You could choose their gender, for example, the exact way that they actually look, headgear, and even a uniform. And where it really started to get crazy is when they added DLC content. As you can see, there is a lot of DLC content that you were actually able to buy, going as far as to let yourself be characters like Soap, Zakhaev, and Makarov from previous Call of Duty games. So as you can see, this is where character customization really started to get turned on its head. As you can see, the emblems and calling cards are still there, but there was extra things like being able to change how your dog kill streak looked between a dog and a wolf if you felt like buying it. Now, speaking of DLC, this is when we get into weapon customization. Once again in this game, there was a completely new type of create a class, which I've talked about in the evolution of create a class, but what we're focusing on here is the weapon customization. And camos also got a lot added in. So once again, there was camos that you could unlock simply from completing challenges. For example, the red camo here, get 150 kills with no attachments. And then eventually, after unlocking all of those, it would give you the gold camo. However, you're probably thinking, seeing a lot of these camos after this that are pretty freaking crazy. These are all DLC camos. This is where DLC started to go through the roof. But this is nothing compared to what we're about to see in the next Call of Duty game. And that is, of course, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. So Advanced Warfare was big for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was the first Call of Duty game with 3D movement and jetpacks. It was also the first Call of Duty game with supply drops.
Elite!
But here's the thing, there wasn't just supply drops, there was a lot more than that. For example, when we go to create a class, let's look at the weapon customization to start. So first things first with weapon customization, of course you have your weapon variants that you unlock through supply drops, but on top of that there's a brand new create a class system called the Pick 13 system, where basically it's like the Pick 10, but also your score streaks are involved as well. But on top of that, for these, there is also weapon camos, which you can unlock all of these different challenges, which eventually you unlock all the way up to diamond for an individual weapon. There is also an entire new camo, which is for completing all of them for a class of weapons, for example, SMGs, which is the royalty camos. Then after that, there is a buttload of DLC camos, which are simply bought. These are not unlocked through supply drops. So then on top of that, what do you get through supply drops? Well, that is everything that you unlock in your armory. And there is a lot. There's a ton of weapon variants, as you're going to see here. But on top of that, there are individual items that you can use to customize your characters, as you are seeing here. And there, like I said, is a ton. And they simply kept getting more and more crazy. For example, the Kraken helmet, or the one that everyone talks about, the Crazy Clown. This is really the first Call of Duty game where your soldier could actually not look like a soldier and look like something completely different. And keep in mind, this is just the beginning of supply drops. Next up, we have Black Ops 3. So here's the thing with Black Ops 3. A lot of people forget about how much customization and things you could choose before supply drops. So let's start with that, and then we'll dive into the supply drop stuff. So first things first, weapon customization was huge in this game. Once again, the Pick 10 system was back, and there was a lot of camos to go with it. Once again, completing all of these challenges would give you eventually the gold camo, and then completing it for all of the assault rifles would give you the diamond, and then the one that everyone talks about, after completing gold for every single weapon in the game, you would get dark matter. A lot of people pretty fired up about this one. After this, there was also some pretty sweet character customization, because for the first time ever, there was a new thing called Specialist. Now, each of these Specialist characters would have their own challenges in it of themselves, that upon completing all of them, it would give you hero gear for all of the Specialist characters. This was something brand new to the game that people, once again, really liked. Now, on top of this, there was this new thing called paint jobs, and essentially what it allowed you to do is put essentially customized emblems onto the sides of your weapons. There's 64 layers on every single side of the weapon, and I actually had a series on my channel dedicated to the top 5 paint jobs of the week, and we saw some pretty freaking incredible things. On top of that, emblems themselves in this game had 64 layers, so we saw some pretty amazing things created within Black Ops 3. So supply drops were interesting in this game. It implemented a couple of new things that you may actually not even still know about. First of all, in supply drops, you could unlock personalized attachments, as you are seeing here. So for example, reticles, all of these were unlocked via supply drops. On top of that, there were individual items that you could get through supply drops that would actually change the way the attachment itself looked on your weapon. On top of this, there were so many black market camos. These were all unlocked via supply drops and were unlocked for individual weapons at a given time, which meant to unlock all of them, you had to unlock them for each individual weapon. On top of that, there were things you could unlock in supply drops for individual Specialist characters that were, well, pretty ridiculous looking and kind of followed in suit of what we saw in Advanced Warfare. These were all things used for customization throughout the game, and they were on top of the things that were already built into the game. And honestly, as far as customization goes, even without supply drops, I feel like Black Ops 3 is one of the top games for customization. But up next, we move on to everyone's favorite Call of Duty game, Infinite Warfare. Now, I'm not actually going to go too in-depth with Infinite Warfare because it's nearly identical to Black Ops 3 with a couple of little changes. First of all, supply drops once again return, and as far as weapon customization goes, camos are almost exactly the same as Black Ops 3, except this time, instead of unlocking Dark Matter, you can unlock Solar and you can also unlock Black Sky as those final unlock camos. On top of that, you also have the same character customization that we saw with specialist characters in Black Ops 3 as well. One new thing that they added into Infinite Warfare is weapon charms, and as we know, everyone really loves weapon charms. One thing that I kind of forgot to mention in Black Ops 3 is the taunts and gestures that you could also unlock through supply drops. That is once again a thing within Infinite Warfare, and it became an even bigger thing because you could do them mid-game and not just at the end of a game. And on top of that, weapon variants were also a thing within Infinite Warfare as well. And then later within the game, they also implemented score streak variants, which actually completely changed the way some of the score streaks actually worked within game. Now, Infinite Warfare also came out with another Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare Remastered.
Let's do this.
So honestly, when Modern Warfare Remastered originally came out, it was nearly identical to what we saw in the original Modern Warfare. But as the game went on, they added supply drops and things changed, so did customization. So first things first, when you go and actually look at your classes, when you equip an attachment, it's the same as Call of Duty 4, but there are many more camos that you were able to unlock via challenges and of course through supply drops. Now, one difference in this game is you could actually buy them with depot credits through bundles, which we're going to look at in a second, which was actually nice and something that got adopted in the next Call of Duty game. Another thing that was added was weapon kits, which completely changed the way weapons actually looked, almost like a weapon variant with no stats actually changed. Another thing that we're going to see continued in the future. Now, also, emblems and calling cards got added into the game, which weren't originally in Call of Duty 4, but on top of that, there was also things that could completely change the way your character actually looked, whereas before it was just dependent on what weapon you were actually using. Now finally, when you actually go and look at the depot, you can actually see everything that you can actually unlock, including reticles and weapon charms and things that we saw in other games as well. So what started very similar to Modern Warfare later changed because of supply drops and microtransactions. But we do actually see some of these things that people did like get adopted into the next Call of Duty, which is of course Call of Duty World War II. So Call of Duty World War II adopted a bunch of cool new systems like the headquarters that we're in right now. On top of that, they also adopted the entire bundle, or in this term, collection system that we saw previously in Modern Warfare Remastered. But as far as actual customization goes, it all comes down to your soldier. So first of all, you were now able to choose divisions, which all had their own skins for the different characters. As you can see, when we pan through the different divisions, all of the characters actually look a little bit different. But on top of that, there was also individual uniforms that you could choose for your soldier. And as the game went on, they got crazier and crazier, like the Grim Reaper that you're seeing here. Now, on top of this, there was also special helmets that you could put on your characters, and face camos or face paints as well. Now, going even further, when we look at the weapon customization, we once again have camouflages, and a lot of camouflages at that, going all the way up to a gold camouflage. But there were also camos you could get through the various collections that were more and more ridiculous, as you can see here. On top of that, though, there was also weapon variants, and when you select your weapon, as you can see, you can choose the different looking weapons. Some of them have different iron sights or ways the weapon actually looks, which was pretty cool and kind of similar to what we saw in Modern Warfare Remastered as well. There was also other weapon customization options like paint jobs that we saw previously, prestige options like clan tag and kill counter, and various reticles and weapon charms that we have also seen before as well. Again, World War II did a pretty good job with customization and adding new things like the headquarters. But then came along Call of Duty Black Ops 4. So personally, I believe that the customization in Black Ops 4 is actually worse than Black Ops 3's for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you go to your specialist characters, you can change how they look, but all of these are through microtransactions. As you can see here, you have to have actually bought these through the store or earned them through a battle pass, which we're not going to talk too much about in this game. But another thing that they did add is war paints. I do think these are kind of useless. A lot of people didn't really like these. But as you may notice, there's no actual skins you can unlock through challenges like there was in Black Ops 3. Now, moving on to weapons here. For example, here we have the Daemon. There's first of all weapon variants, and as you can see, the weapon variant for this one actually does 25% more XP per kill, which is pretty damn cool. It doesn't actually change any of the stats of the weapon, it just makes it so that there is more ways to actually get XP. Now, on top of this, there is a ton of camos in here. Once again, the return of dark matter returns in this game as well. But there's also your black market camos, as you can see here. But the cool thing in this game is they added reactive camos. These actually move in game, which is pretty damn cool. This is probably my favorite addition within Black Ops 4. Now, on top of this, there's also camos that you can earn through Blackout, which were added later, and of course, zombies as well. And once again, in the Black Ops games, the paint shop and the emblems return as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that is Black Ops 4, and this is going to take us to our final game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So customization within Modern Warfare is pretty decent. As far as the best part of it, it has to go to the weapon customization. With all of the various different attachments available for the different weapons, it is pretty insane all that went into the customization of weapons in this game. Now, as far as visually, the first thing that you have is camos, and there are a ton of camos that you can unlock via challenges, all the way up to the completionist camos, which is of course gold, platinum, and Damascus. On top of that, though, there are some other ways you can customize your weapon. For example, with various different reticles you can unlock through different challenges, weapon charms, which we all know and kind of love, and then after that, stickers, which is kind of a new version of paint jobs, which in my opinion is not nearly or even as close to as good as it was in, let's say, Black Ops 3. Character customization in this game goes down to operators, which are pretty interesting. They're basically like specialist characters with absolutely no abilities, but you can customize these characters with various different skins, as you can see here. There's quips, which are basically just voice lines, and then finishing moves, which you can perform if you sneak up behind some enemies. So these can actually be different for the various different operators. But ladies and gentlemen, that is customization in every single Call of Duty game. I'm sure I missed a couple of little things here or there, and you can let me know what those are down in the comments below. I know, for example, I didn't mention any gestures or anything like that in Black Ops 4, just because we've kind of already talked about that in previous Call of Duty games. But as you can see, the biggest thing with customization is as these Call of Duty titles progress through the various generations, it becomes more and more and more. The biggest jump, in my opinion, was Call of Duty Ghost when it went from a PS3 or an Xbox 360 game to an Xbox One and PS4 game. That is when it truly got amplified in my eyes. And throughout all this time, we've seen some pretty big changes throughout customization between the different Call of Duty titles. So let me know what type of customization was your favorite down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, it's very much appreciated if you hit that like button. These videos take forever to put together, going through the various different Call of Duty games. So if you did enjoy, it's much appreciated if you hit the like button. And if you like what you see here and want to stay up to date on it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard.